So, I just really need to say it. There are still people who don't understand that the Metal Gear Solid series actually has its good and bad moments, but if you have to ask me if Metal Gear Solid 3 is a good game, dude, you have no idea how good it is. So here we have the likes of Retro Rebound, a YouTuber who actually focuses on retro games, so pretty much he's my kind of guy. I recently subscribed to him. I did not watch any of his videos before. I certainly did not watch the videos that I am seeing right now, but all that we're gonna check right now is his fascination on Metal Gear Solid 3 and how he actually takes it. So, let's give it a watch. By the way, I already watched, I think, the first minute of this, but I just haven't had an oral reaction to it, so I may as well just make sure I give you guys the reaction that the video needs, so may as well. This is, by the way, I think a review, I think his review of everything, the marketing, the actual gameplay, and what actually happened afterwards, I'm not sure, but yeah, here we go. The actual aesthetic of the game. Yeah, you eat snakes, but is the beer necessary? I mean, look at this. Is the beer? Yeah.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, this is me crawling through some of the grass. Lock, if you want to put like some green screen grass effect, go ahead and do that, because I'm Solid Snake, baby.
Oh,
today we're talking about Metal Gear Solid 3.
Correction. Naked Snake. But yeah, I can get the confusion a lot, but okay.
Funny timing that. We're doing kind of what we did with Silent Hill 2, where we're just shooting in the dark based off rumors and hoping we land a pretty well-timed video today, because the MGS3 remake, it's real.
Yep, Delta is coming, and people will enjoy it, even if there are only original lines from the original voice actors. People will enjoy it because it was a good game. Unlike the games that actually come out, modern gaming is nothing but a shit show. So yeah.
Is the game really that good? Does it really deserve that remake? The answer is yes, but this game, I think, is celebrated for its story. But when it comes to gameplay, after going back to it for this video,
when it comes to its gameplay, I understand that it has its own thing on MGS3, but I agree that if there are updates that can be made to how mechanics, overall gameplay mechanics work, that's fine too. As long as it's not too overdone.
I am thrilled it is getting a remake because it's so fantastic in every other way, but some of the gameplay, most, is very clunky, and I'd like to just talk in general about the product, my Metal Gear experience, and just celebrate the franchise. It's great to see Konami back and involved in AAA game development. We, of course, have things like the Suikoden collection on the way, which I'm also very excited about. We're getting things like the Castlevania collection. So they've been getting into the mix a little bit more, reactivating those IP, and I'm very curious to see what they do next. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here, you're into nostalgic and retrospective content, consider subscribing. Let's begin, as always, with the complete box experience. So we've got the HD collection, and then we've got Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence.
You know, they've actually done Metal Gear Solid 3 a real dishonor, I think, because the actual thing that was actually missing from the HD collection is actual pressure control on the controllers, because MGS3 had missed a point in which on CQC you take someone prisoner for a longer time than usual because there is pressure control. Once on actual pressure control, if you are able to press so hard on the circle button, you'll be executing your prisoner via a CQC. That's only on a CQC maneuver. I've had a problem on HD Collection that I wasn't able to actually do it using my PS3 controller. So it was a problem I could not solve immediately. So I'm not sure if it's actually my controller that has a problem, or maybe it's the game aesthetic, the lacking of game aesthetic, or pressure control on the controllers. I'm not sure. Because the PS3 controllers are usually focused on, the PS3 controllers are definitely focused on the triggers. That's what they're really focused on, just that. Because the Gran Turismo 5 and Gran Turismo 6 games are actually there, the trigger controls have to be given more importance. So, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's what I think. That's why I did not play the HD collection on both Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 streams, because there is no controller, there is no pressure control for the controllers for the PS3. I had no choice but to play it on the PS2.
Which was the re-release after the original MGS3 Snake Eater. This is the one with some bonus content. The best place to play is right here on PlayStation Vita.
I don't have the PlayStation Vita at all, so I have no comment on that one, so yeah.
You unfortunately cannot download this game right now because Konami said that the historical videos that you'll find in the cutscenes of this game had to have licenses renewed, so they currently cannot sell the product, and the timing is mighty interesting because now they got a remake.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Reminds me a bit of Dead Space, where, you know, they did the FPS boost for Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3, but the game that was getting a remake, Dead Space 1, didn't get FPS boost on Xbox Series consoles. Strange that, but anyway, this is my favorite place to play it. It's actually, when I played these games for the first time in the early days of college around 2014, that's when I got to them. I was late to the MGS party, my personal favorite being Metal Gear Solid 2. I love that game. Metal Gear Solid 3 I also love, but 2 I just have great memories with. But this is where I played it. 2 legendary Metal Gear Solid games in the ultimate handheld experience, plus MGS2 VR missions.
MGS2 VR missions, that is more consistent with the original Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance disc. So yeah, I wonder why they actually promoted MGS2 VR missions when Substance itself has VR missions, but whatever, okay.
Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. And then you crack it open, yep, nothing. But happy to have it because, again, I think this is the best place to play it. And then we've got the actual copy here for PlayStation 2 for Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. Love this box art. The back of the box says, Metal Gear goes online.
Too bad Metal Gear Online on the MGS3 version is already off. The servers have already shut down long ago, so really, too bad.
Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence players can battle or team up with 7 other friends for online dominance, featuring addicting online gameplay modes and a new 3D camera. Subsistence is the game that gives players a brand new Metal Gear experience, with all new online gameplay, including deathmatch, team deathmatch, sneaking mission, capture mission, and rescue mission. The complete Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater game with new user-controlled 3D camera includes never-before-released games Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, secret theater mode, duel mode, and new stages for Snake vs. Monkey minigame, and game connectivity with Metal Gear Acid 2 on PSP. So yeah, a lot going on here in this re-release. As you can see, multiple discs going on here. But most importantly is the manual, which is a little disappointing. Black and white here.
The actual box that I had was fake, and the manual was not included, so it is really too bad. Also, I am missing out a lot because I did not really access the disc 2, which is why we actually watched the secret theater on the YouTube archives instead. So yeah, hold on. We checked my mic for a bit. I'll be right back. I am very sorry if my condenser mic is causing you trouble. It's not supposed to be cranked up to 100, but 75 input. But yeah, Windows does that. Actually, FX Sound actually does that, so please forgive me. Oh my god, of course. Anyway, we shall resume this as it is right now. Let's go.
Here, but it goes through The controls, as you would expect for starting, and you'll need this because the controls in Metal Gear Solid 3 are a little bit confusing. I won't lie, they're just a little jank. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They go through what each disc has on it, and camera views obviously being a very big deal. It goes through some of the survival stuff that's in this game, the combat where you can interrogate people, you can grab them, you can use them as a shield, etc., etc. And then disc 2, Persistence, in an all-new online mode, the return of Snake versus Monkey, and versions of the original Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, the games that started it all. And then it goes through creating a network configuration because that was all new really back then. And then back here, Metal Gear Acid 2 Promotion, which I know a lot of people aren't really favorite.
Metal Gear Acid and Metal Gear Acid 2 are not really part of the canon, so they're really just known spin-offs that have been released, I think, right next to Metal Gear Solid 3, if I'm right, according to release date. Anyway, yeah.
On Metal Gear Acid, I haven't played those games, but anyway, that is a complete in-box copy of Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. And now let's talk about Snake Eater, of course, because this is the game that's getting the remake, and
Oh yeah, if I'm correct, Snake Eater was the first game, the first iteration of the game itself. So Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is the very first iteration. I'm not sure if that's the final release or the first iteration, but whatever. Okay.
I'm very excited because after going back to it...
Oh yeah, sorry, he's talking about the Delta, the remake itself. Okay, got it.
I gotta say, it's super worthy of a remake. I know for many people this is like one of your favorite games of all time, so I'm not dunking on it, but I do want to say that firing it up, there is a steep learning curve with the controls because of how dated they are. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's say you, the gamer, want to aim your gun. Nowadays, it's hold L2 or L1, and that readies the weapon, and then R1 or R2 is to fire off. Right? Simple. In this game, it's hold R1, aim with the left stick, and then shoot with square. And it's terrible, to be quite frank. However, I think it was almost...
I'll be right back. We're back at it, but I'm just gonna go back 10 seconds, I suppose.
Game, it's hold R1, aim with the left stick, and then shoot with square. And it's terrible, to be quite frank. However, I think it was almost by design because everything in this game requires thought. Even when you want to contact someone for help, you know, you turn on the radio tuner, you find the right frequency, and if you want to talk to specific people, you got to have the right frequency so you can call them and get advice on battle strategies or where you are right now. I really appreciate its amount of thought put into it, and I know just based off how Kojima makes his games, I could definitely see this being intentionally clunky to make you think about when you really want to aim, when you really want to shoot, because even things like crouch walking in the grass, which are staples in modern stealth design, is not a thing here. You are either crawling in the grass on your stomach, or you are crouched in the grass standing still. Because a lot of the stealth in this game is built around blending. And I really like that. Like, you'll pause your game, you'll change your camouflage for your face paint, for your outfit, and it'll change the percentage on the top right corner of the screen to pretty much hide you more and more. Nowadays, stealth is what I call a little bit more invisible. Are you in a shadow? Are you in the dark? Are you above your enemy and they just somehow don't have the peripheral vision to see you? Congrats! You're doing a stealth thing in a game. But in this game, I like how, again, methodical it is. So I feel like the clunky controls are part of the experience for people, but there's no doubt that in a modernized take, we can retain the spirit of that and still have something really special here. Even things like the exposition in the beginning. The story setup here is awesome because it's built off real world events. It's about a Cold War ongoing. There's tension between Russia and the United States, and Snake is invading Russia effectively. If he's caught, the US is saying, you're on your own. Like, we're not going to claim you at all. You're dead. And I love the tension there because it feels palpable. It feels believable. It reminds me of how I feel about Fallout. Like, Fallout is this super ridiculous universe where when you shoot enemies, they blow up into little bits. However, based off the way the lore was established between this resource war and the way China and the US were at odds with each other, it feels like
there are just parallels of events between... there are just parallels in comparison to events of the real world and the one of Metal Gear Solid 3. So pretty much, oh, sorry, you have to forgive me about the horns right there. It's just those who are just part of the barangay who just wants to actually make sure that the vehicles are in garages and whatever and stuff, so yeah. So, anyways, parallels between our world and MGS3. It's a good thing that there is that there are similarities between events of this world and MGS3. I just appreciate the realism, little details to it, the storytelling as well. So yes, you input the storytelling in between and or during the events that are happening, the real world events that are happening here. That's the good thing about MGS3. Hideo Kojima tells a very, very good story here. So yeah.
I can buy into it. So the same thing is happening here with Metal Gear, and that's what makes you get invested. But even in the starting of this game, there's a lot of JRPG sensibilities, like the little camera angles, the edgy flick of the cigar by Snake, all the way down to just philosophy dumps on you from boss to Snake. I just love how unapologetically Japanese in style the game is, where it takes those almost JRPG-like tropes but packs them into this more action stealth game. It feels like a weird fit of a ton of things happening at once, but that's what again makes a Kojima game a Kojima game. However, those moments where you're
Kojimbo, it's an equivalent. Believe it.
Taking a knee and you're listening to Boss talk about what a soldier is, what it means to be a soldier, is great stuff. But I feel like in a modern game, for example, me crouch walking through some tall grass and hearing her talk to you about this stuff is the way that this stuff would be delivered now. You know, since BioShock 1, it really changed how audio delivers the story while you go off and do something else. So I feel like that's something that we're going to get in a remake. I'm curious just how faithful it's going to end up being. But these were little things that I think immediately, even the biggest fans, upon firing it back up and just really grounding yourselves and realizing, yeah, this is an amazing video game that's hurt by PS2 era controls, where no one really had one perfect control scheme or another. We were still figuring that stuff out, where nowadays it's pretty expected, if you were to play a third-person stealth game like Metal Gear Solid, that the shooting controls would not be holding R1, aiming with the left stick and pressing square. It'd be something else. Now, don't get me wrong, you do get used to this stuff. I remember distinctly having the same issue. I fired up MGS2. I fired up MGS3. I'm playing these games. I'm like, what are these controls? You do get used to it, but you'll even see in my own gameplay, there are moments I look like I've never picked up a controller before. There is a learning curve to it all. And
there's always a learning curve to any game, so you've got to get a good feel. Okay, for a first-time player, the very first thing you must do is get the feel of the game first before you go strolling confidently. Most new players do not do that. Well, if you are a 13-year-old or you're a 12-year-old, you wouldn't do that. You would just play the game as it is. You just go forward without suffering any repercussions to not feeling the game at all. So you learn things, you appreciate the game that way. Well, if you actually hate the game, then if you actually hate the game when you have that much of a learning curve and you don't actually comply to the learning curve, then you are a pessimist.
And it makes stealth difficult. I think the toughest one for me was either just lying down and crawling through the grass, because then you go into first person and you can only see so far in front of you, which is awesome. Again, very much immersive qualities. We'll talk about it in a moment. But I want to be able to see and be stealthy, and it's really hard to get methodical like that when you can barely see in front of you. But that immersive element is what makes the game special. So as you're going around, like they say, you got to survive. They immediately introduce the survival mechanics. So things like shooting a snake and skinning it and eating it while you're out there restore your stamina. And that's obviously extremely important to surviving while you're out on this mission. So the immersive qualities here, again, going back to the stealth and changing your camouflage, is what makes it really cool. But as you've noticed, I've sort of sidestepped the story for a lot of this video. The reason for that is when we do some of these more, hey, a remake got announced retrospectives, I don't want to spoil things for a lot of folks, because I feel like it's extremely important that you get to experience that on your own. I got to experience MGS2 and MGS3 completely unspoiled, and it was amazing, especially MGS3 being a very personal tale, because while the number would suggest one thing, MGS3 is the beginning of Snake's story. It's the actual start of it. Now this
That's correct, because this is where Big Boss actually makes his debut. This is where he really makes his debut, actual debut.
is already a problem with the Metal Gear Solid series. Like, you get MGS4, which is the end of Snake's story, but then you get 5, which takes place, I think, before or after Peace Walker, which is on PSP, which is like a middle of the timeline game. It's a super confusing release order, but MGS3 is perfect for the remake because it is the start of Snake's story, effectively. And it is a very personal tale at that really connects you to Snake. It makes you care about Snake. Now, for me, as a big old Raiden fanboy, where I love Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, I love MGS2. I love the story of Jack the Ripper. And you want to talk about a philosophy dump that has aged extremely well. Just trust me, bro, kind of moment here. Get to the end of MGS2 and tell me your mind will not be blown. I mean, it is insane. I mean, I know some people have already reposted the clip before, so you might have seen it, but to me, I think at times...
I think those who actually don't like MGS2 would actually like MGS3 more, but I came to actually enjoy Metal Gear Solid 2 even with its flaws because, first off, I replayed it so many times before I even streamed it. To be honest, that's what I did. I replayed it so many times. I even got all the wigs. I collected all the dog tags. It takes replaying an entire game so many times for you to understand and appreciate the value of it. And whether or not it actually makes someone rage over the flaws, you cannot underestimate its value in storytelling because this is still a Hideo Kojima game. And MGS3 is another Hideo Kojima game that has actually outdone itself.
Kojima gets away with a lot of weird things in his games that no one else would ever get away with. But this is one of those moments where I'm like, I get the GOAT status for him. There are moments, though, where I truly don't. And I think he gets the benefit of the doubt because he makes very weird games with a high budget. And we don't get that because games are usually risky. Like, for all I could criticize Kojima for, he's the only dude who can make something like Death Stranding, a game that admittedly I have not played yet, but it doesn't look super appealing to me, but people continue to tell me give it a shot. But this kind of, if you will, and I know some people say, well, it's not just that, bro, but this FedEx simulator where you're delivering packages, you're creating roads, you're connecting people. I just find that so fascinating that he could get away with making something like that on a AAA level just because...
I never played Death Stranding. At least, not yet. Well, should I play it? I don't know, but it is a Konami game. Maybe I should give it a try. I'm not sure.
Because of namesake. But Metal Gear is where he really made his bones, and Metal Gear Solid 3, no doubt, is one of the most celebrated, one of the most popular in the entire franchise, and to see it coming back is super exciting because the boss fights in this game, this is what I meant by JRPG sensibilities. I know for a lot of folks, they'll probably raise an eyebrow at that, like, well, any game can have that heavy exposition in the beginning, but that to me is a JRPG thing. The dialogue and the heavy philosophy-driven characters, that's a JRPG thing. And then boss fights at big moments in the story that play out the way they do in this game just reminded me again of a JRPG. Maybe it's the way I just personally connected to it, but I will say there's one boss, and we won't show gameplay for it because I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but I'll just say there is a boss called The End that is one of my personal...
I really, really regret trying to skip the Socraviano boss, The End, because I was able to take The End out at the warehouse using the SVD. But I did not do that the first time. I definitely fought The End when I was still newly playing MGS3. So I appreciated the value of going up against The End the first time I got this game. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. But I regret actually playing The End boss during the stream. So, do you want me to play against The End on another replay stream. I'm not sure, but if you want to experience the story again, please let me know, because I really appreciate the feedback. And so far, I have not been receiving that much feedback as of late. So, yeah.
Favorites, because it's a very stealth-driven boss, which is super unique on its own, and you're almost playing cat and mouse with them. But the problem with that boss back then is there were so many loading screens and it could get confusing. But it just, in the terms of an idea, like how you concept that, was fascinating. So again, to have that in a remake is going to be super exciting. Am I a diehard MGS fan? No, I've never had a strong connection to Kojima's games, quite frankly, just outside of MGS2. Like even MGS3, I would say, yes, it's really that good. But did I have this strong connection with it like I see so many fans do? No, definitely not. I think there are very particular games from him that stand out to me, but there's no doubt that he's an exciting creator to watch. You know, I think of Boktai over on, I think it was the Game Boy Advance, where it had the little solar panel pretty much built into the cartridge, and you would have to play the game at certain times of the day to fight vampires.
I really never experienced playing any of the cartridge games and any of the cartridge consoles ever, like the Nintendo 64 and stuff like that. So definitely played purely on the disc, only the disc. So I only got Sony products, PS1 and the PS2. Of all the time during my teenage years, I've only had those. So yeah, actually, I also had a Game Boy Advance before too, so yeah.
Hires, which was really cool. Or I think of now how he's exploring a relationship with Xbox for a game called Overdose, which is going to be a cloud-based game. And that's exciting because when Kojima's handed these new tools, he just finds something unique to make. And that's what makes his games so alluring. When he gets that PlayStation partnership, he makes something like Death Stranding. So, you know, very celebrated creator, and this is, I think, really where things started to blow up big time for MGS and for its popularity, and where people established that true connection with the game. But for many people, it was much earlier than this. But of course, with these moments I'm talking about with exposition, I don't think I'm giving enough credit to the cutscenes. Very extra, very over the top. I'm talking about Ocelot just spinning his pistols and firing them off. It's
the long cutscenes and the cinematic feel to the actual cutscenes is what makes Metal Gear Solid games actually that good. And Metal Gear Solid 3 is no exception to it. It is amazing. However, when it comes to Ocelot, when it comes to Ocelot's character, he's just got his foolish. He's got his foolish young vibes right here that everybody just cringes at the look of Ocelot. Like, what is this? Sure, he's got the revolver twirling thing, but wow, isn't that a bit too overdone? Right? Well, I know people are going to say that because they've already seen Revolver Ocelot from the very first Metal Gear Solid game, and to actually see him at his younger age like this, and he's actually too proud of himself and his skills on twirling whatever weapon he has, like a revolver. Like, I mean, the Makarov itself, the Makarov pistol itself, he tried to make that a revolver during his standoff with the KGB troops guarding Sokolov. Okay, spoiler. But anyway, yeah. He is a young'un. He's a real young'un here. So yeah, people are going to get that impression the first time they see him.
It's hilarious, but there is a charm to it all. There's a lot of personality in these cutscenes, and they're long.
Yeah, there's a personality to every cutscene. There's a personality to Ocelot himself. So that's just what I'm saying. Just putting it out there.
Make no mistake, if you've played and beat MGS4, you know what I'm talking about. They can be very long because Kojima has made it no secret he's a movie fan, and that's where one of my little critiques slides in. You should be aware of this if you've never played a Kojima game or you're not.
That actually answers it. He likes the movies.
His love of movies really slip into his games, and especially with MGS4 at the end, and especially something like Death Stranding from what I've seen. There are moments where people are just thinking, bro, go make a movie and just get it out of your system and then come back to games, where he tries to meld the two. But
I like that conversation.
when you see the melding of movie and game, it's Michael Bay. It's not what Kojima does, where he works with really well-known actors, really well-known directors to choreograph very special cutscenes in his video games. But you can see his love for movies in the way he shoots cutscenes. And so all of this comes together to a very unique experience that I think people are going to appreciate. But is MGS3 that good? Yeah, definitely. And you should be at least interested, I think, in this remake.
Interested? I love it, actually.
Would you want to go back and play even the HD remaster? I would say hold up, because again, the controls to me really can hurt this experience.
No, the controls do not feel ridiculous, but it did feel incomplete. I said it the first time, there were some missing controls on the PS3 iteration of Metal Gear Solid 3, at least on the HD collection, because, yeah, pressure controls were missing. I couldn't do all the CQC moves, like taking someone prisoner for long periods of time without killing the prisoner. So, yeah, some missing controls.
Will you adapt? Will you get used to it? Yes, I did the same thing almost 10 years ago now. But going back to it again, I'm just like, thank God it's getting a remake. So, those are my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 3 in this timely video. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. What do you think of Metal Gear Solid 3? Fire away down below.
Make sure to check out Retro Rebound on his YouTube channel. I'm sure he does other YouTube videos on other games that you might actually enjoy. If you are a gamer yourself, definitely check it out yourself. So, that said, I will be taking off. This is an EliteLenny reaction, and I will be seeing you guys on the next one. Cheers and happy hunting. Well, that's not a good line, but yeah.